All right, veracity. I'll give you the Latin law maxims in a structured, authoritative way with English translations and a short explanation of each. This will be a comprehensive reference list you can use in your lawful work, court challenges, and education material. I'll divide them into core categories so they're easy to recall and apply in the right context. Foundational maxims of law. These are the bedrock principles recognized across common law, civil law, and equity. Latin maxim English explanation. Ubi jus ibi remedium. Where there is a right, there is a remedy. If the law recognizes a right, it must provide a way to enforce it. Ex injuria jus non oritur. A right does not arise from a wrong. Wrongful acts cannot create lawful rights. Ex turpi causa non oritur actio. No action arises from a dishonorable cause. You cannot sue based on your own unlawful or immoral act. Fiat justitia ruat caelum. Let justice be done though the heavens fall. Justice must be served regardless of consequences. Nullus commodum capere potis de injuria sua propria. No one can gain advantage from his own wrong. You cannot profit from your own wrongdoing. Actus non facit reum nisi mens sit rea. An act does not make a person guilty unless the mind is also guilty. Criminal liability requires both a guilty act and guilty mind. Ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorance of the law excuses not. You cannot claim innocence simply because you didn't know the law. Nemo tenet ipsum accusare. No one is bound to accuse himself. Protection against self-incrimination. Contract, agreement, and consent. These maxims are crucial in rebutting statutory presumptions. Latin maxim, explanation. Consensus facit legem. Consent makes the law. A contract's force comes from the agreement of the parties. Consensus tollit errorum. Consent removes error. When you agree knowingly, you can't later claim mistake. Quod ab initio non valid, intractu temporis non convalescit. What is invalid from the beginning does not become valid with time. A void agreement remains void forever. Volenti non fit injuria. To one who is willing, no injury is done. If you consent to something, you can't later claim damages. Nemo potest mutare concilium sum in alterius injuriam. No one can change his mind to another's injury. You cannot withdraw from an agreement if it harms the other party unfairly. Equity and fairness. Equity tempers the rigor of the law. English translation, explanation. Equitas sequitur legem. Equity follows the law. Equity respects legal principles unless injustice would result. Equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. Self-explanatory. Basis of equitable relief. He who seeks equity must do equity. You must act fairly to receive equitable relief. He who comes into equity must come with clean hands. If you acted wrongly, you can't seek equitable relief. Delay defeats equity. Vigilantibus non dormientibus equini. Equity aids the vigilant, not those who sleep on their rights. IV. Property ownership and rights. Essential for trust law, land law, and sovereignty. English translation. Explanation. Cuius est solum, eis est usque ad coelum et ad inferos. Whoever owns the soil owns it up to the sky and down to the depths. Complete land ownership principle, modified by modern laws. Dominium non potest est in pendenti. Ownership cannot be in suspense. Title must be vested in someone at all times. Nemo dat quod non habet. No one gives what he does not have. You can't transfer a right you don't possess. Possession vaught titer. Possession is equivalent to title. Long possession can imply ownership. Qui prior est tempor, posterior est jure. He who is earlier in time is stronger in right. First in time has priority in right. V. Justice and burden of proof. Powerful for court rebuttals. Latin maxim, English translation, explanation. I incumbit probatio qui dicit, non qui negat. The burden of proof is on he who asserts, not he who denies. They must prove their claim, not you disprove it. Semper necessitas probandi incumbit a qui agit. The necessity of proof always lies on him who brings the action. Same principle, burden of proof. Actori incumbit onus probandi. The plaintiff bears the burden of proof. Common court standard. In dubio pro reo, when in doubt for the accused, the presumption of innocence. In pari causa possessor posture haberi debet, where rights are equal, The possessor is to be preferred. Possession is a form of advantage in disputes. VIs, public office and authority key. Key when challenging jurisdiction. Latin Max English explanation. Delegatus non potest delegare. A delegate cannot delegate. One given authority cannot transfer it to another without permission. Quod principi placuit legis habet vigorum. What pleases the ruler has the force of law. Old principle behind statutory power, useful to identify tyranny. Salus populi suprema lex esto. The welfare of the people shall be the supreme law. Law must serve the people's good. Necessitas non habet legem. Necessity knows no law. In extreme need, normal law may be set aside. Lex non cogit et impossibilia. The law does not compel the impossible. You cannot be forced to do what's impossible. Sept, fraud, wrongdoing, and abuse. Used when exposing fraud. Latin maxim, explanation. Fraus est celare fraudem. It is a fraud to conceal a fraud. Concealing fraud is itself fraudulent. Fraus omnia vitiat. Fraud vits everything. Fraud makes all agreements void. Dolo malo pactum se non servandum. A maliciously made agreement is not to be kept. Contracts based on fraud are unenforceable. Falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. False in one thing, false in all. If a witness lies about one material fact, all their testimony may be disregarded. Note, these are universally acknowledged legal principles, not just historical ornaments. Even in modern courts, they can be raised to challenge presumptions, expose fraud, and assert rights, provided you tie them to the facts and the applicable jurisdiction.